Okay, quick question for y'all. Have you heard of this series? Or this one? Or maybe this one? What if I told you that all three of these series were made by the same creator? And what if I told you that this creator has made a lot more amazing series, all available on the Viz Media Manga app? Rumiko Takahashi, also known as the Queen of Manga, is a very well-known figure in the anime and manga world. She's created some of the most notable works in anime and manga history that have inspired many more future anime and manga, and she's still writing manga to this day. I've been lucky to have read a good amount of her works. I thought it would be a good idea to rank her main works, as well as give you guys my recommendations as to what out of her works you should read. I believe you should try all of them if you can, but here's how I'd rank all of them if you have limited time, in order from least best to best. As a disclaimer, I haven't read One Pound Gospel, Rumic Theater, or Rumic World, so I won't be covering those here. And without further ado, here we go. At the bottom of my list, we're going to start off with Yashahime, a story that follows the offspring of some of the main characters from Inuyasha. It's a cool series, and I think you should give it a watch or read if you've watched Inuyasha before. But the reason I placed it at the bottom of this list is because you need to view Inuyasha in order to understand what's going on. It's not something you could just pick up and read or watch randomly. I'll talk about Inuyasha later in this video, but overall this series to me isn't anything special. It's okay, and for any Inuyasha fans wanting more content, this is perfect for you. But to be honest, it doesn't add much to the Inuyasha story, and there's not really anything spectacular in Yashahime. It's a pretty short series, but I'd still check it out if you're interested. For the next spot, I gotta give it to Rinne, a story about a girl named Sakura Mamiya who's been seeing ghosts for most of her life, and she meets a guy named Rinne Rokudo, who is a Shinigami that lives on Earth. I haven't read much of this series. After reading a lot of other Rumiko Takahashi works, I thought this one was kind of similar to her other works, and it felt like I read something like this before. I probably gotta give this one another chance, but for now I'll place it at second and bottom. I also know that people like me aren't the target audience for this series, but if you're at all interested in this series, I would go and check it out. Who knows, you may love it. With that, I'll go into the next series, which is Mao. This story is about a girl named Nanoka Kiba who survived an accident at a shopping center years ago. And one day, when she's walking around that area, she gets transported to another time period, where she meets the traveler, Mao, and those two go on to explore cases of potential ghosts, as well as events related to the accident. This series is a pretty good series, and it's still ongoing. But I find that this series can get really repetitive with some of the cases, and the plot can get very uninteresting at some times with the directions it takes. I stopped reading this series after I got to chapter 146, and I just recently picked it back up again. But in my opinion, this series falls short compared to Takahashi's other works. I think it's a great series for someone who may be new to Takahashi's works, and if I read this series before Inuyasha or some of other Rumiko Takahashi's works, I think I'd enjoy it a lot better. But when I read it, I just wasn't too big of a fan. But who knows, you might love it. And with that, I'll go to the next series, which is Mermaid Saga. Mermaid Saga tells the story of a man named Yuta, who ate mermaid flesh hundreds of years ago and is immortal, but is tired of living like that and wants to meet a mermaid to turn him back to normal. This series is pretty good, and it's a short one too, so if you don't have the time to read these longer series, you can read this one. There's not too much that stands out with this series though. It's good, but it's not something I would boast about like I would with Takahashi's other works. But I highly recommend this series to anyone who likes horror and edgy manga. This series is definitely the most mature out of Rumiko Takahashi's works. I personally enjoyed it a lot, so I highly recommend you check this out. Now this next one is a very well-known series. Most of you may know this one, and it's Inuyasha. The classic tale of the demon Inuyasha and the girl Kagome trying to find the parts of the sacred Shikon jewel that got separated in a past period of Japan, which Kagome can cross to from present day from a well in her backyard. Okay, I know that was a lot of info, but I mean, come on. This series has almost 200 episodes and almost 600 chapters of manga. Anyways, I watched the Inuyasha anime, and I thought it was pretty good. I like the characters, I thought the villains were cool. I just think the series drags out events a lot, and a series like this could have been a lot shorter. This series uses the same villains, the same types of obstacles, and everything just feels redone with each arc. But nonetheless, I highly recommend watching or reading this series. Whether you read or watch it is up to you, but nonetheless, there's a reason why this series is so well known within the anime and manga community. Now these top 3 works are some of the best stories I've ever read and watched. I highly recommend these 3 to anybody, and the reason why they're in the order they're in is purely based on preference. Starting with number 3, we have Ranma Half. This story is about a guy named Ranma Saotome who is set to marry another woman named Akane. But Ranma is a guy who, with a touch of cold water, can turn into a girl, and with a touch of hot water, can turn back into a guy. This series is super funny. I watched the entire anime and picked off where the series left with the manga. It's an episodic series with some consistency and continuity with the episodes. I think the chemistry between Ranma and Akane is super funny. They make the episodes funnier than they already are. And I overall think this is a very unique story. I mean, what other anime character has the same ability as Ranma? Highly recommend to anyone that loves funny shows, and if you want something that's also funny, look no further than my number 2 Takahashi work, Urusei Yatsura. This series follows a boy named Ataru Moriboshi, who seems to have bad luck come his way all the time, and an alien named Lum, who is romantically obsessed with Ataru, but it seems like he won't turn an eye towards her. This, in my opinion, is a funnier series than Ranma half, and is probably one of the funniest anime I've ever watched. I've watched the entire show from the 80s and read part of the manga, and if you want good laughs, I highly recommend the show. If you reach the end, you'll need to watch the 5th Urusei Yatsura film, The Final Chapter, in order to see the manga ending in animated form. Great series, and I would highly recommend to anyone who loves a good old classic anime, as well as some good laughs. And finally, we're at my number 1 Rumiko Takahashi work, which is My Son Ikoku. This story follows a 20-year-old named Yusaku Godai, who lives at a boarding house called My Son Ikoku. He is someone who doesn't know his path in life, and tries to figure that out throughout this story. This story explores something that's not widely talked about in anime and manga, which is life after high school and life after college. A challenge a lot of people face as they graduate school and go off into the real world. It's a scary time for a lot of people, and this story illustrates that well, and it's very motivational when it comes to that. I think everyone, no matter who you are, should read this series. You may be young and still in school. You may be old and have gone through school and made a living. You may be just graduating high school or college right now and are in that moment. Whatever it is, you will relate to this story and you will love it, just like I did. If this series teaches me anything, it teaches me that life is short and that we should spend every moment doing something that we'll remember for years to come. And that's why I highly recommend using your time to read this amazing series. I mean, the art's great, the characters are great. There's not really much more to say about it. The plot's great. Just please read this series. It's so good. So that's all of Rumiko Takahashi's main works ranked, in my opinion. How would you rank these series? Have you read one of Takahashi's works? Which one is your favorite? If you made it to this part of the video, first of all, thank you. And if you're new to this channel, welcome. I cover a lot of content related to anime, manga, manhwa, webtoon, all that stuff. If you liked what you watched, consider giving this video a like or consider subscribing if you haven't already. If you're interested in a topic, but you don't see me cover it on my channel, let me know. I'm always looking for new ideas. And until then, I'll see you all in the next one.